All right, so let me explain to y'all how to use Jack. So hopefully you have the server started, right? If you don't know how, you can refer to the previous video that I made. So I'm going to try and explain it to you in a way that, well, in a way that makes sense to me, and hopefully that'll make sense to you. So Jack essentially is it's a virtual environment within your computer, right? So you can see in the setup here, I chose my Focusrite as the interface, right? So what you're seeing here are the physical inputs of your interface. And what you're seeing here are the digital outputs of your interface. So in the case of Focusrite, the digital outputs will be the software playback, right? Here you can see that I have up to 20, which corresponds to the playback number here, right? So just remember that this isn't your physical outputs. Your physical outputs needs to be routed from your audio interface configuration. And usually that is through a separate program like the Focusrite control, right? All right. So what Jack allows you to do is route within your programs and between your programs all the audio streams. But in order to do that, you are going to be choosing Jack Router as the audio interface within the program. So to give you an example, let me show you how to use it on a DAW. So let's open up Ableton. All right, now that we have Ableton open, let's just go to our preference. Normally I would choose the Focusrite ASIO, right? But for now, to show you how to configure, we're going to be choosing Jack Router here. And then remember to enable all the inserts here and the outputs as well, right? So if you select the audio engine in Ableton as Jack Router, if you take a look at the graph of Jack Router, now you can see that the program comes up, Ableton Suite comes up here, and you can see that input 1, 2, 3, 4 are connected into Ableton 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So this is what this looks like. So external in would be from Jack, right? So you can see that input 1, there's Jack coming in. That's my microphone. If I delete all of that, you can see that input 2, 3, 4 are no longer getting sound, right? Currently, I have stereo pair microphone connected into 3 and 4. So if I hook that up, you can see that 3 and 4 are now getting audio, right? So as I said before, if you don't make those connections, your program isn't going to get audio from the physical inputs here, right? So keep that in mind. Now the output is, right? Output here, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4. That corresponds to the outputs here. So output 1, 2, 3, 4, which is going to, 1 and 2 is going to play back 1 and 2, which is here. So you can see that right now I'm getting audio from input 1, and output 1 and 2 is going into playback 1 and 2, right? Now if I switch it to 3 and 4, now you can see that it's coming into playback 3 and 4, right? All right, hopefully that made sense. Ableton can handle more than 4 inputs and 4 outputs, right? So how you go about changing the number of inputs and outputs is by giving it an argument in the ini file. So let's quickly find that. If we go to Program Files and Jack 2, and then go to Jack Router here, let's go to Windows 64, and you can see this Jack Router ini. This will be the configuration setting, right? So if we open that, we can see that the initial I/O is going to have 4 inputs and 4 outputs. Don't worry about rest of these as much because we'll only be using these 2. So let's say you want to change it, right? All right, so the easiest way to change the settings on this is you move it to the desktop or some other space, and then you make a change. I'm going to change it to 8 in, 8 out, and then save it. And then you're gonna drag that saved file back into the same folder, right? We do this just because of the administrative rights. And once you do that, you have to close it out and open it up again. Once you have that in ini file set up, you'll now have more inputs and outputs available to turn on. And that'll show up also in here. So hopefully you can see how the routing is configured in Jack. So now let's say you want to get audio that's happening from Ableton into, for example, OBS. In order for ASIO devices to work on OBS, you need to first download OBS ASIO. I'll leave the link in the description. And you just download the installer and just install it, and it'll automatically do its thing and install the plugin in the right directory and all that. So once you have that installed, you'll now be able to add an ASIO input capture like that. So when you add a source, choose Jack Router once again in the device, and you can choose, let's say we're going to input, let's say I'm going to input 5 and 6 of OBS, right? So if I do that, now if I go look into our Jack, you can see now I have OBS in our Jack Router, right? So I'll disconnect this, right? I want to have audio from here. I'm just gonna throw in a break, and the master is going to be going out on 1, right? So I can route out 1 into, we said input 5, right? And you can now see that there's audio going into OBS. And remember, the output you can decide from here, right? If I do output 3 and 4, it'll be from out 3 and 4. Like so, right? If I do that, you can still have audio coming in, right? So that's how you can also route audios within the programs. So that's gonna be how you route through Jack Router. So let me show you what you can do with the jack router and how to use it with Jacktrip. So in Jacktrip, once you have somebody connected, you'll have a node that pops up, right? So here, you can think of this node as a wireless transceiver, right? It sends signal to the Hey computer, and it receives signals from the Hey computer, right? So what it's sending to Hey will be completely independent from what it's receiving from Hey. So keep that in mind. All right. So basically what I'm doing is I'm sending my mic to my other computer to the send one, right? And in my other computer, basically what I'm doing is I'm taking my receive one and looping it back into send two, which will be my receive here. And then now I'm bringing it back to input 3, right? So here you can see that we're getting audio from input 3. So that's how you're going to be routing through Jacktrip using Jack. So remember that if you want to, for example, mix all the different incoming nodes, the client nodes, into one cohesive mix, you can always open up a DAW. Since we used Ableton earlier, let me use Reaper this time. So same thing in Reaper. If you set up Jack router, just make sure you set up all the inputs and outputs. And for example, I can now, so I'm sending my mic from my interface one, input 1, into Jacktrip send, right? And from my other computer, from the Hey 2 node, I'm taking the receive and then sending it to send 2 of my Hey 2 computer, which should be coming out of receive. And I'm going to plop it into channel 1 of Reaper. And here you go. You can see that it's coming into, oh, sorry, you can't see that. Now you can see that it's coming into Reaper. If I do mono, right, I can change the input, and here you're able to monitor and then mix and things like that. So that's how you can bring in audio from Jacktrip into your whatever DAW, right? And now the output 1 and 2 is the playback output 1 and 2 here. I can put it to playback 1 and 2 coming in right here. All right. So hopefully that made sense. It's kind of confusing, but I think once you realize that this is your physical inputs and then this is a digital output, and whatever in between is whatever applications that are using Jack router as its audio device. And then you can route in between those programs, right? So that's how you use Jack to configure and route different signals to different places. And I'll show you a different method of using replugs in the next video.